the Instagram feed is the Instagram feed. Meta doesn't do anything to you. It's like, that's the feed you're working with. That's the real estate we're giving you. And that is it. And I think that's where some of the biggest opportunities lie in. You get to have a direct, dynamic relationship that's a lot more engaging because of the state of play. And you get to shape the entire environment and the experience around it, which there's no other medium that lets you do that.
Welcome back to Brands and Play, your podcast for everything immersive marketing. I'm Albane Prioux, strategic marketing consultant.
And I'm Nick Hill, co-founder and chief innovation officer at Sawhorse. This week marks 50 episodes of Brands and Play. And before we get into it, we just want to take a moment to acknowledge everyone who's been listening. We really appreciate you.
I can't believe that it's been 50 episodes. We will continue to give you the best content possible. And on today's news, we have why boring brands are failing inside gaming, why Coach is back inside The Sims, how Rockstar just legitimized mod culture with an official marketplace, how Regal is turning Roblox play into real-world movie rewards.
And for our real-time review, Albane takes us to the new Nike immersive experience at the London Outernet.
Absolutely. And after that, we'll be joined by Bastian Bergmann, co-founder and CEO of Solsten and author of Press Play, where every company needs a gaming strategy. We'll unpack why gaming psychology matters and how brands can engage successfully within virtual worlds.
If you're enjoying the show, make sure to give us a follow. Each week, we break down how brands, platforms, and creators operate inside gaming, UGC platforms, and immersive media.
Let's get into it.
Let's go. Damn, Albane, it's 50 episodes. That's huge.
Know. I can't believe that. Like I said, I can't believe that it's been 50 weeks of hard work, but never, not like letting go. And I'm really proud of us and the whole team for doing it. Almost a year, 2 episodes down, and then we're done. We would have done a whole year.
2 more to go, and that's a year. That's consistency. I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, well done to everyone.
Also, there's just so much happening right now. We're still in January, and I feel like I was just going through all of the news, all the highlights that we kind of gathered together, and I was like, wow, there's so much happening this year. It's a great indicator.
I think there's a lot to unpack for the news today.
So let's jump in and let's go to the news.
All right, so my first story is why boring brands are failing in gaming. So that was a very bold, I would say, title from Beat TV. They've interviewed at CES Morgan Pomish. So she's the Senior Vice President and Head of Innovation Experience at Digitas North America. So this is a great agency.
And she's coming on the show in a couple weeks.
Yes, she is. So that's so her interview was honestly really aligned with what you and I have been talking about for quite some time now. But I just thought she highlighted really interesting topics that I think Brian is still not completely grabbing. So I just thought it would be worth to highlight what she's mentioning. And most importantly, how that links with, I think what you and I know now is that brands need to start thinking about their brand marketing more from an entertainment lens in which gaming falls. But within this interview, she unpacked a lot of really interesting insights. The first one is that I think she is mentioning that a lot of brands that are still, copy and pasting some of the content that they have on traditional media and, bringing onto a immersive or gaming environment just doesn't land really well. And something that she highlighted as well, which I really appreciate, is again, even if you are adapting your campaign or brand marketing strategy to a virtual environment, that strategy will have to have differentiation between whether it's a Roblox or whether it's a Fortnite. So there is a lot of granularity that comes into launching your brand within those new virtual environments. She does mention, and I think something, that I totally appreciate, is that there is a bit of a less scary, that's not her words, but that's just me interpreting, a less scary option, which is rewarded video, which we know, I think when it comes to at least distribution of media, is super easy and doesn't feel as intrusive because there is an exchange of value. And I think for a lot of brands, this is the first thing that they can test to see what kind of reward that can get within gaming. And the other thing that I really like from her interview, she was asked essentially what was the impact of gaming within the funnel. And I think for a really long time, awareness was really the piece that was highlighted on why you would do gaming. But she seemed to think that, and I think has a lot of case study that prove that actually gaming is not only a great awareness piece, but also a lot more impactful when it comes to mid funnel. But she does highlight that we're still on the path to bottom funnel. So while there's strategic partnership being done with Roblox and Spotify, we're still talking about a path to a bottom funnel, a bottom funnel advantage here. This is more like top to mid tier.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like there's this sort of dynamic or mental shift that needs to happen with brands because it's not traditional advertising. You know,
Exactly.
traditional advertising where you control the message and it's short format and you just blast it out is very top down and not interactive. It's not, um, uh, I don't know. There's just such a barrier to entry there.
No, absolutely. And I think last thing to highlight, I think with her point is that we are now seeing more and more brand taking that entertainment lens, and this is just adding in another piece of news within this story where Gap has announced that they've hired someone to lead the entertainment strategy. So they hired Pan Kaufman. I'm not butchering her name, but she is now
From
the
Paramount.
executive vice president, chief entertainment officer of Gap. She comes from Paramount as an ex-executive, and they're talking about fashion-tainment, another jargon, another word, but essentially to say that customers are now not just buying apparel, they're buying into brand that tells compelling stories and drive cultural conversation. That's a quote from her directly. So I think it's quite interesting to see that. I think this year we're going to see more and more brands tapping into different pillars of entertainment to be able to engage with that younger generation, specifically the Gen A and Gen Z.
Yeah, it feels like there's a little bit of a shift when it comes to the brand messaging. It's becoming more entertaining. It's more
Yeah,
branded content. It's more long form and it's more organic.
that's right. Yeah.
And
And
that's
I
just a
think,
little bit of a challenge for brands.
times are tough right now. So I feel like if a brand can give me, if they want 2 minutes of my attention where like watching their content, like it better be fun and lift my spirit up because
Yeah.
times are tough.
Well,
Times are very
the bar keeps rising. These
yeah,
activations are so impressive these days that,
exactly.
if you want to cut through, you got to be dope.
Exactly. You got to put in some effort. But what do you have next?
Next up, I have a story all about how Coach, the fashion brand, has activated inside of The Sims 4. And then for the listeners, I think most people understand what The Sims is. But if you don't,
Yep.
it's a life simulation game where players design characters, build homes, create environments, and role play everyday life situations. And this franchise is 25 years old.
Mm,
So it's super OG.
I remember it makes me so old, but I remember when it first came out. It was
Yeah,
great.
so do
It
I.
was like sensational. It was like one of its kind.
It's like old school metaverse, you know?
Yeah,
You
so
gotta give
good.
it props. But I know that you love stats, so I pulled these. It's
Thank
got,
you.
like, 85 million players worldwide. Its current concurrent user base is, like, 20 to 45K, with peak, at about 95K. It's, really attracted to Gen Z and millennials, and it skews more female with, like, about 60% female.
Yeah.
And what Coach did is cool is they didn't just advertise in The Sims like a temporary pop-up. They were looking at it more of a persistent sort of activation inside of the game. So adding to the creative tool, the players there can create shoppable digital collections. They brought in the iconic bags, the Tabby and the Brooklyn. And players can build and design Coach branded interiors and furniture. So it's sort of like built into the broader ecosystem of the game, the build mode. So it's not just like a temporary thing that's showing up and then going
Mhm.
away. So it's sort of it's the brand really like leaning in and being persistent there. And one thing that I'm seeing as a trend with fashion brands is that like brands in general are getting smarter in their activations. Like they've been doing this for years now inside of gaming. So we're getting away from those PR stunt moments where it's like this brand went into this game temporarily. Like that's so amazing. Now it's like, okay, well, now that you're there, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Just showing up again doesn't add a lot of value. So there's three things that I think that we're starting to see more brands do. One is they are starting to offer more value to the player. So once you're inside, like what does the thing do? Does it help you play the game in a certain way? Another thing is utility. So, can you attach sort of perks to the actual digital wearables that you're wearing inside the game? Like, do they give you, allow you to play the game in a different way or a better way? So, not just visual. And then also co-creation. So, letting players like remix the brand, and kind of like from a Gen AI standpoint, like tweak the style of the fashion and be like a co-creation together with that brand. So I see like a trend of just adding more value and more, you know, more strategic, smart ways of like going inside of these games. What are your thoughts?
I haven't been to The Sims to check it out, but I'm really curious to see how they've deployed it. Because I agree with you where even if we look at The Sims and the past activation that they've like the first one that comes to one is probably the I'm gonna butcher it again, but Moschino, is it the brand Moschino?
Moschino.
Moschino.
Yeah.
And I think there was a bit of backlash because there was no utility and it was essentially just a pack that was quite expensive already for the community. And I think that's the recurrent feedback from the Sims community is that it's packs after packs after packs. It's quite
Yeah.
expensive if you want to continue to like get those new updates. So I think it's great that coach understood that and looked at longer term what is going to be the value of our pack. Because you're right, where I think now in some communities, there's never been, an eagerness to have brands, and you always like brands had to always justify themselves. I think there's been some communities that justified that you came was really exciting and you felt seen. But I think more and more gaming communities now are like, okay, brands are coming into games. We know that, but what are you going to bring me? Because I think
What's the point?
yeah, exactly. What's the point? And I think this is what makes or break as well a long term like success of a brand within a community and whether you're going to see actually an impact within your funnel is what are you giving to consumers that will make them want to engage with you longer term and actually purchase from your brand. Just showing up there and delivering a message is just not enough. And I think it's never been enough, but I feel like the novelty maybe a few years ago was enough to excite. I need
I'm
to check
excited to
it
see
out.
more brands come in.
I need to check it
Um,
out.
yeah, what do you got for Rockstar?
So very exciting. I mean, we there was tease. We the last year there was a lot of rumors of Rockstar engaging with UGC creators from different platform, including Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. But now this is officially launched. They have a official marketplace called CFX Marketplace, which is essentially an official storefront for modders and UGC creators to release different types of customization. So can create maps, scripts, characters, clothing. That's a good one for our fashion brands, vehicles as well. And the good thing is that at the moment, it's quite. I think it is still a soft launch. So I think there's still a process. Like not everyone can join and be a creator, but everyone can buy, and it's quite interesting. So I tried to register as a creator just to see the process, and there's a few things that are popping up from their licensing agreement. So when you unroll, there's a contract essentially that you have to sign. What's interesting is that the maximum price that you can, put any type of items for sale is $500, which already is really expensive. And I was looking on the marketplace, some of the creators, like some of the maps, for example, that have been built are almost $200. So I was really surprised
Wow.
by how expensive it is. And I haven't mentioned it, sorry, but the marketplace is providing UGC for two of their most popular games. So it's Red Dead Redemption and GTA 5. But it's kind of, we know that this is going to be as well the strategy for the upcoming GTA 6, which is due to release end of, well, mid-November 26, if there's no further delay. Another thing that I thought was really interesting again from their agreement is that Rockstar is, the intermediate, sorry, for the payments, meaning that there's going to be a fee that they will get every time there is a transaction. The actual percentage is not disclosed within the
Mm,
contract. And I couldn't find anything online that
interesting.
specified how many. I think it's because now it's still like an enclosed group of creators. So they might have had one-on-one agreements with them. Definitely a great opportunity for creators to partner with potential brands and bring them on this marketplace.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. It's definitely a signal that Rockstar is getting into UGC. I think that we all anticipate that GTA 6 will have a UGC component that we're all
Correct.
really excited about. This to me is almost like them testing the waters and getting
That's
some
right.
experience of dealing with UGC because it is so difficult, right? It's like a open situation where you have to vet so much content coming in. So I feel like maybe this is their opportunity to get accustomed to it and build up a team so they can attach it to GTA 6
Absolutely.
whenever they decide to make the UGC component
Just
of that
just a
live.
caveat for our listeners, but GTA 5 always had a really big mod community, the same way as The Sims. So they would have
Just
been
not
like on
official.
exactly, they would have been on Overwolf, they would have been on a lot of different marketplace. This is essentially an objective from Rockstar to centralize and have like a wall garden around those creations. So one, they can control their IP, but two, obviously they can, make a revenue out of this. So we'll keep you updated on that. What do you have next? I feel like I've butchered the name here. Is it Regal?
It's Regal.
Regal. See, I've butchered the name in my intro. So
It's
tell me
okay.
what they've
There's
done.
no Regal movie theaters in the UK, to my knowledge.
No.
I think that it's a US based movie theater chain called Regal. So in the news, we're excited about this new launch that they have done on Roblox with all of these IRL rewards attached. So they created this virtual movie theater environment experience game on Roblox. It was created by Super League, and inside players can go into this digital lobby. It looks just like the theater in the real world. Um, and then there's a little mini game attached to it, which is an endless runner style game. So not that complex, but you just sort of dodge things and you kind of collect coins. But if you collect enough coins, you can unlock real world benefits, which is free popcorn via the Bounce technology. And so Bounce is a tech platform that connects in-game actions to IRL rewards and loyalty. They Super League actually just acquired them and brought them into the fold. So congrats to that team. So this is interesting. Like I jumped in and I checked it out. There wasn't a ton of players that were in there, but I did play the game. It's fairly simple. And from my perspective, I'll just break down the pros cons here. Like I think the pro is I like to see this stuff because this is moments where brands can actually kind of go past the game and connect with people to their core business. In order to redeem this reward, this popcorn, players actually have to go to the physical locations. And in general, this sort of immersive marketing is offering value to the player, right? That's the good part. I think for the cons, this is an owned experience by Regal, so they have to drive traffic to it. And obviously that's a challenge.
Hmm.
The game itself is very simple. So, it can't really compete with the other endless runners on the platform because it's just a simple version. So if you think about retention, why would players come back if it's only to redeem popcorn? What other reasons are there? And there's still some friction. Like you have to download the app, you have to verify, and then you go into the place you can redeem.
Yeah.
But it's not super seamless and easy. But I will say it's definitely getting better. And from a holistic view, from an innovation standpoint, I love to see this stuff. I want to keep dropping the barrier to entry and the friction. And I would love to see more brands attaching this type of thing to the activations they do. So it seems like an early step, but I was excited to see this. What are your thoughts?
When you were mentioning this, I would flip actually and I don't know if that was their objective, but I would flip the consumer journey where when I'm hearing this, it's like very simple game, kind of feels like a very like more gamification than actually a game and very quick session times. And it feels more like the person was already going like to the cinema, and I don't know how it is in their theater, but I would assume there's like a QR code. They see Roblox, they see that, do
That's
this
cool.
to redeem the popcorn, and that's a way maybe for if I was them, I would assume that you can use that as a way to see what is the crossover between people that already go to our cinema and our Roblox players. So that it's less about how do we get people from Roblox to our cinema, is how do we get people from our cinema to Roblox so that you can kind of collate that kind of data.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption if you because I don't think purely from what you mentioned that the objective is to get people to come back. It's more how do we get them, they're already in the
To
cinema,
go
how do we
to
get them to
yeah.
engage so that we understand what is the crossover so that later down the line we know what is the addressable audience. That would
Yeah,
be
I
how
think
I'll use
it's
that data.
there's value, and I think it scratches the surface of that sort of really connecting with that consumer
Yeah.
with through gamification. But I think it can be kind of expanded on
No,
greatly.
absolutely,
So
absolutely. But I
yeah,
think it's a great. I'm always keen to see like how do you bridge the gap between the two, and it's always really exciting, especially with the cinema. I think we know that less and less people, especially younger generation, are going to physical location to consume movies. So, any perks that they can do, I think it's a great idea.
smart move.
Yeah.
But let's keep this train moving. Let's go to our real time review, and Albane, let's see what's up with Nike.
Yeah. Okay, so for our real time review, I'm really excited because usually you're the one that comes up with, really cool events, immersive, etc. And I'm just like, well, I went onto a Roblox game or a Fortnite game because that's kind of the only thing I can talk about.
You went
Um,
somewhere physically. I'm
but I
excited.
I actually bump into it. I was not planning. I was planning a completely different type of episode, but I bumped into this activation from Nike for their new release campaign called Nike Mind. So I'll give a bit of like insight on what the campaign is about because I think the activation is a bit confusing otherwise. So Nike has released a new pair of shoe called Nike Mind. So it's quite innovative. I feel like you might like this. So it took them a decade to be able to release this new product, but it's essentially a neuroscience-based footwear that is designed to enhance mental focus. To put it very like bluntly, it has like pressure points within the sole of the shoe and is supposed to bring the athletes back into like essentially connect to their mind and body before and after performance.
I love that.
So I thought that was like really interesting. However, this is something that I had to like look at much later on after I've engaged with the experience. So the experience itself was in the Outernet. So London has it's in a very busy. So it's next to Tottenham Court Road. So this is a very busy area, a bit like Times Square. Like I would say in
Yeah.
terms of
Okay.
like lots of like really busy area. It's like in the center of London next to Piccadilly Circus, etc. But they have this new immersive space that has 8K screen like all around you, so essentially you are kind of immersed within whatever content is in there, and they have an amazing sound system. So there's been loads of artists but brands taking over the space to be able to like immerse their consumers in like an innovative way. This was the first time that I saw Nike do anything there, so I was really excited to just see what they had to do. And essentially what they've done is that they leveraged the space to be able to create this really cool like it looks like I'll send like you'll see the footage, but it's like this 3D avatar that has like a brain, like you can see through his brain, and then the shoe is obviously connected to it. And then you have a sound that is like really meditative. So it's kind of like bringing you. I think what's really interesting with this venue is that it's free, it's kind of open, but you just enter this space that's like full of screens, but you can still see and hear a little bit like the sound, the rush of the city behind. But what's really interesting with what they've done with the piece of content and the music is that you immediately felt like much more calm. So what was
Okay.
really cool is that people like you have a few benches, but people were sitting down and spending like I spent maybe like 15 minutes, but by the time I arrived and left, there were some people that were still like kind of like meditating and just looking at the content over and over and over again. So I feel like with that was something that to me was really good is that they created a piece of content that aligns really well with what they were trying to do with the shoe, which is connecting the body to the mind, resetting yourself. Like, yeah.
So people were feeling that
Yes,
what they
yeah,
were
yeah.
trying
They
to
stayed.
communicate,
They
people
said
were
that
actually
because
feeling
the
it.
thing is, like, you have to think about it. So it's like you enter this box that has screen all around you and also above you. So it's 8 feet high, I think. So you
Yep.
just looking at it, you feel so small, and any kind of content that's there just feels like incredible to look at. And it's 8K, so it's like the graphics are absolutely mind blowing. So it always grabs people's attention. But as
But there's
soon
no
as
you don't get to try on the shoes. So you
no,
don't
so
get that
that's gonna
part of
come
it.
in my
Okay.
bad things. So the good thing is like, yeah, people are staying there for a really long time because the experience is really captivating and I think resonates a lot with the campaign. It is, as I said, like it associates the brand with a very positive sentiment. People are staying there for like minutes. Like, so I don't know how long some of those people were there for. Like some were with their kids and they were just like looking at it for quite some time and were sitting on the floor. So I assume that they've been there for quite some time. And I think it just it you had the shoe in display, but I would say it didn't feel like the focus of it, which I think goes into maybe my bad side, which is one is still relatively passive. So you're just watching a screen. There was some interaction where you can like go into like a circle and that will illuminate one of the screens, but it's not like it's not incredible. It's
Okay.
okay, I would say, in terms of interactivity.
But it's free.
The
It's
only
free,
thing is
right?
that
You can just
sorry?
walk in. You don't pay money. It's free. You
No,
just
it's free.
any
So that's
that's
free,
cool.
which is great. And I think but my thoughts is that I if it wasn't for this episode, I would have not have connected the shoe. Like I just saw this
Ugh.
shoe and I was like, this is futuristic, but I just thought it was like a stand from Nike. I didn't even think that this was a new product. So I think this is when I feel innovation or immersion can kind of get lost as a priority compared to what you're trying to do. So it felt a
Uh,
bit more like an awareness piece for the brand and not the product.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that is a challenge, especially going back to last week's episode. We were talking about the concept of agency. Once you have an immersive experience, you're not really controlling the message because people have the ability to wander around and focus on different points. So if you really want to get one message clear, you have to do that very strategically. So it
Exactly.
sounds like this is a not really hitting in that way.
But even, they could have put like a bit of text or a representative, someone that was like
Yeah.
next to like to explain a little bit what it was. But other than that, I thought it was great. In terms of innovation, was it innovative? I would say for London it was, because arguably this is one of the most like innovative, like immersive spaces that we have, the Outernet. Nowhere near, what you could have done with, the Sphere or anything like that. But I would say it's fairly new, and I think this is why people are still stopping and staying so much time in that room watching Nike content. So I thought that was in a way like really good. And as I said, the content, I loved it. I thought the creative was really like really inspiring and really calming in like the hustle and bustle of the city. So they've definitely like managed to to bring that message forward.
Well, it's cool. I'm definitely jealous. I wish I could have checked it out. It seems cool,
Haha,
right?
I've got
You
something that
got me.
LA doesn't have.
London's got cool shit.
Yeah.
Um, but let's keep moving. Thank you for that breakdown. That was awesome. And now let's jump to our interview with Bastian Bergmann. We're pleased to welcome Bastian Bergmann, co-founder and COO of Solsten, an AI-driven platform that uses psychology to help brands better understand and engage their audiences. And he's the author of the book Press Play: Why Every Company Needs a Gaming Strategy. I first met Bastian at Seg3 last month, and today we're excited to talk about gaming culture, how brands should look at gaming in 26, and the opportunities for advertising in the immersive gaming marketing space. Bastian, welcome to Brands and Play.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's so
I'm
good to have
excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to chat with you. I read your book. I loved it. And I think it does a really
Thank you.
good job of talking about the game marketing space over the past like 5 years or so. And
Mm,
you cover a lot of the biggest campaigns across a lot of platforms, a lot of different games. Thought it was really helpful. Also, at Sawhorse, we talk to a lot of marketing teams who are kind
mhm.
of new to the space. And there's always so much education that goes into these
Yeah.
calls. And I kind of want to be like, there's a great book. Can you just read this and then come back to me and we'll start talking?
I appreciate you saying that. That's yeah, that was part of the goal for me is to, give a resource to everyone that's looking at this space and help build a bridge really. That's kind of where all this came from because it felt like gaming is such a unique industry and it's its own world and it operates under very different rules compared to a lot of other industries. And I think for folks on the quote unquote outside, if you're, I don't know, consumer goods or fashion or, what have you, and you're looking at this, it's very different than, any of your traditional marketing or advertising channels. Also very different how, if you think about, well, how do we actually use this as a revenue generator? How do we incorporate this into our services and products? It's just, it's foreign territory still for a lot of leaders and decision makers. And that was the impetus back then to even go on this journey and spend 4 years of my life to put that together, was really if I can help build the bridge and be part of the resource that you just alluded to, Nick, then yeah, I think I've done my job at that point. So that's really good to hear.
You
Well,
definitely did.
yes, and thank you for your service. I'm gonna leverage this. I'm gonna get this book out to as many people as I can because it's a great read. But in the book, you argue that gaming is no longer a niche, but more a
It
core
is.
component of brand strategy. Can you explain that in a little bit more detail and then how you got there?
Yeah, so I think there's a few numbers that are really important, and they kind of honestly they tell the whole story. And typically, when you start to have conversations with brand leaders or marketers or executives in that space, to your exact point, Nick, the amount of education that you still have to do to just be able to wrap your head around this opportunity that is gaming is still pretty profound. And I think the number one barrier or blocker that gets in the way is the mindset and its stereotypes and the mental model around what people think gaming is. It's really funny when you look at some of the conversations, people that chime in either on LinkedIn or elsewhere, even about the book. Some have read it, some haven't. You always get into this very nuanced discussions from people that have been in the gaming industry for 30 years ago, but that's not gaming. Like mobile gaming
Mhm.
is not gaming. And I think
Right.
it's that exact mindset that's still getting in the way of, well, how do you actually look at this industry? So what I mean in the book and why I think every company needs a gaming strategy and how to best think about this space is there's a few really important points. One, you almost have 3.5 billion people that play video games globally almost daily. So, yes, that is not just the people that are sitting in front of your PlayStation or your Xbox and they're playing a hardcore shooter game. That's the stereotype that people still latch onto. It's the 20-year-old dude in the basement with neon lights in the background and they're slinging an energy drink and they're blowing stuff up on their screen. Yes, those people exist, absolutely, and they're a core part of a subset of the gaming culture and what that used to be in the 80s and 90s, but that's not the representation of quote unquote everybody that plays. Because when you look at 3.5 billion people actively engaging in games, and that's across all the different platforms, and that includes mobile for obvious and very good reasons, you're talking about your average consumer. That's 80% of the people that even have a smartphone that actually play video games. So
Mhm.
the crossover to just your general consumer population is profound. And then when you compare it to, well, social media, some of these other channels that marketers or brand leaders would use to maybe reach and engage consumers, young audiences specifically, so Gen Z, Gen Alpha combined, spend about 3 times the amount of time in gaming environments than on all social media channels combined.
Mhm.
For Gen Alpha specifically, the dominant medium, this is the first generation in history, the dominant medium through which they engage, socialize, consume news, and any other form of entertainment is gaming. They game more than they do anything else in terms of media consumption. The fastest growing segment in terms of gaming consumption and hours played in a given week are silver surfers, 80 years and above. So where I'm going with this is it often gets discounted as, well, young people play. No, everybody plays. And it's the only consumer medium that actually cuts across all demographic cohorts. And I think that's some of those statistics, and that's what makes it really, really relevant for brands because all the attention is in games, all the engagement is in games, monetization is bigger in games than anywhere else. You have all of that, and then you compare it to, well, where's the global advertising dollar going? Well, only 5% of the total global ad spend are actually going into video gaming environments. And when you take those two together, what's actually really interesting to think about is 20 years ago, there was another medium that was in exactly the same position. It had all the engagement, it had all the attention, and it was barely getting any advertising dollars. And that was social media. Now, fast forward, we all know how that went for social
Yeah.
media. And I'm convinced we're gonna see a similar wave and a similar acceleration around gaming in the coming years.
I'm fully on board with that, and I like to deep dive a bit more into the people that are playing this game because I think you're right. Whether you talk about the fact that the gaming stereotype is dead. And I'm fully on board with that because there's so many different types of gamers. It's a little bit like trying to
Yeah,
frame someone that's like there's no one type of person that utilize social media. There's very different
100%.
fragments and communities. I love to maybe like link that to the work that you're doing at Solsten. Can you maybe give our marketers, listeners, a bit of advice on how they should think about
Yep.
gamers and maybe going beyond, the traditional demographic segmentation,
Yep.
age, gender, but more like the psychographic as well, that you like some of the data that you can have as well on your platform?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And you just gave the exact reason for why companies, brands, any company, when you think about your customer or prospective customers and consumers in general, you can't think of them as, well, we're going to market and sell to 40 to 50-year-old women in the United States.
No.
Cool. What
I
does
think
that
that's why
mean?
social media was so popular because it allowed to
Exactly.
really narrow down on who you're trying to speak
That's
to.
that's exactly it. And so when you're painting with these really broad strokes, that's like saying, women in the US in that age range all like the same color, they drink the same drink, and they all eat the same food, which is obviously not true. But for some reason, because it's simple, we tend to, lean into these demographic stereotypes. The challenge is neither your age, your gender, or your zip code or anything like that actually tell us anything about who you are as a person. The fact that you live on the West Coast, Nick, doesn't tell me anything about who Nick is, other than I'm jumping to West Coast stereotypes, and then I'm not doing right by you, and I'm not even investing in getting to know the human that is behind that zip code and behind the fact that you live out on the West Coast. And I think that's the big point, where demographic data doesn't let you understand and connect with the actual human, and behavioral data is only useful up to a certain point. The challenge with behavior is twofold. One, you're always looking into the rearview mirror. You're always looking into the
Um,
past. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to look at the behavior. It already happened.
happened.
But
Mhm.
it's actually a pretty poor predictor of future behavior. So you can't really predict the future from past behavior. And this is the second big reason, you don't know why the behavior happened. You just know it happened. You just know it's there. And that's one of the most fundamental discussions that we get to have with teams, whether it's on the marketing side, on the brand side, and even on the product or on the innovation side. They sit on all this data and they look at all this data and then they go, well, we have this specific cohort. Maybe they're, this age, they skew male. I'm like, okay, that's all great. And they're similarly engaged on our website, or maybe in a game that we have a branded experience on Roblox. They're similarly engaged. One group picked up the free item that we gave out and the other ones didn't. But otherwise, from an engagement perspective, they were the same. And I go, well, do you know why one group went for that item that you gave out and the other ones didn't? No, we just know that they did. And that's the problem. You don't know the driver behind the behavior, which makes the next question then that teams inevitably run into almost impossible to solve for, which is, well, how do we fix it? How do we get more people to engage with the stuff that we're dropping into the experience? And you can't answer that question if you don't know what's driving and compelling the behavior in the first place.
Sure.
So what the work that we do at Solstem is we move companies and teams in their understanding of who audiences are, whether it's their existing customers or prospective people that they want to reach, whether they play games or engage on other platforms. It's broad because we're talking about consumers in general. We move them all the way upstream to understand the psychology, the psychographics behind the audience, because that ultimately what compels people's behavior, what nudges us to watch this movie versus this movie, to buy this t-shirt over this brand, and so on and so forth. So that's what's actually gives you the very nuanced understanding of why things are
Mhm.
happening and why we're observing certain behavior and what to do about it. So it's very useful in informing marketing, creative, brand positioning, messaging, because now I can position myself as a brand and as a company with the experiences that we're building, with the content that we're going out, actually in line with the actual motivations or the personality attributes or the values that people have. And values are really important. People spend time and money on the things that they value. So the more we can speak to them and embed ourselves within those and against those, the more we're going to resonate with the people that we want to try or whose attention we want to try and get.
I love that. I mean, that's like the why, it's so important. And I feel like once that's established, then the next question is, well, where do we place them? In what
Yep.
games? In what platforms? And I guess my question for you is like in 26, what platforms do you think marketers should be focusing on? What has the most potential? And are there any like dark horses out there,
Yeah.
platforms or games that people should be thinking about?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would never go to a brand and say like you have to focus on just one platform, because what's key for any brand or any company and their, call it, gaming integrations and gaming strategies at large, for them to be effective and work and deliver the results that they want, they have to be authentic. Okay, so how do we get to authenticity? Authenticity is where, back to the conversation that we were just having, if I can understand the actual needs, drivers, and desires of the people that I'm trying to engage, and match that and map that against what I stand for as a brand, my own brand values, my value proposition, those two have to align. That's what creates authentic experiences. And I think that also shapes with, well, what types of platforms do we maybe want to be in and active in? Because some platform lends itself better for a specific brand than others, for example. The New York Times is one of my favorite examples. I have a dedicated section on them in the book. They're not on Roblox, at least not as far as I know. They're not on, in Fortnite or anything like that, which are those are some of the obvious ones you jump to. They make mobile games, and they're exclusively focused on, they want to become the premier destination for puzzle games,
Okay.
because that fits so authentically with crossword and with the ethos of the New York Times. So they just lean into that, and it's incredible for them. For some other brands, you take Paramount, for example, and their SpongeBob IP. Like, they just had this activation in Fortnite and they absolutely killed it. It
Mm.
was incredible. So there was a great overlap there, because SpongeBob, with his quirky humor, there's a specific fandom overlap with the Fortnite audience, but the idea of SpongeBob as the companion and the way Fortnite as a game is structured, and you bring your companion along on all these missions into the battle royale, and you go explore, like, it just fits the game and the narrative and the gameplay so naturally and so authentically. So I think my advice would always be, you have to start with the audience, the conversation we just had. Then you have to do some soul searching. Who are we? What do we actually stand for? What are our value propositions? Make those two ends meet, and then go, well, the audience that we want to engage, which platforms are they on? What types of games do they most play? And then across that, where do we want to place our bets? And I don't think it's, you have to be on one platform and that's it. I do think you have to spread your wings a little bit, and some are going to work better for you than others. Um, Everyone, I think, would probably, instinctively jump to Roblox. You have to be on Roblox just because it had a very good 2025. It's growing quickly. The numbers
Mhm.
are there. They're trying to do more on the advertising side. I do think they have some way to go on actual measurement and attribution, being able to let brands track downstream effects rather than just brand awareness. Um, I think 2026, and it's not a dark horse because they're well known, but I think Epic and Fortnite are gonna have an absolute gangbuster year. I think what they've been doing over the last 2 months, it's you're starting to see where their heads are at and where they're going. The Simpsons release was incredibly well orchestrated, like,
Yeah.
textbook. To me, that was what the future of transmedia releases are gonna look like. Like, they just,
Mhm.
Disney and Epic together, hats off. That was phenomenal. They're coming out with South Park, today. We're recording this, so it's actually being released today. The video footage that I saw, that looks incredible.
Mhm.
And they're making all the right investments in the background to actually be able to go to brands and say, "Here you go. Like, we make it easy as an on-ramp." So that would be my, um, I think, breakout platform, even though it's well known, but I think they're gonna have an incredible year. And then dark horse, quote unquote, if it comes out in November, would
Yeah.
be GTA 6.
Of course.
If it has the creator economy element to it, if it allows for integrations, because that would be such a, you can already see, just like from what the Grand Theft Auto gameplay is and the sceneries of the cities and all the activities that you could do, like how naturally that lends itself for different brands to integrate itself and become playable to a
Yeah.
degree within that environment. So I think if they have that ready on launch, um, that could be a big one for sure.
Yeah, I think you're naming the two that I had in my prediction, Fortnite and GTA as well. I think Fortnite with Unity as well in the direction
Yep,
towards mobile, but
exactly.
they're really evolving. Let's see with GTA, but for sure, Fortnite and Roblox are now an evolution of social media. They're as you mentioned, that they have a whole creator economy around it. Fortnite is still like developing it. I guess I would love to for you. I think you've talked about this in your book, but I would love for brands to understand a little bit more from you how they should think about these spaces because I think it's a bit of a different shift of mindset where posting something on social media where you have like a semi-passive response, like the most that you can get is probably like, a comment if you're super lucky. And I think I love for you to deep dive a little bit on how brands can interact within these spaces and what it means to engage with that
Yeah.
new type of community, I guess.
Yeah, I think my the facetious statement would be, if you don't want to engage with consumers and have that interaction, then don't go to into a place that lives off of that interaction, that engagement, right? I'll take one step back because you're actually mentioning an incredibly important point. Because people always ask me, well, but social media, there's so many people on social media and it's still, the numbers are still there. We've all seen the Financial Times graphs where social media users declining a little bit, but yes, Meta still has 3.5 billion people across all of its properties. Like the reach is massive.
Mhm,
So,
absolutely.
but you actually mentioned an incredible point because I always say, well, games are more effective though in attracting, retaining attention, and engaging people. And the reason for that is, while social media is a passive experience, as you said, it's one directional. It doesn't actually require our participation. Games are bidirectional. It's action reaction. It doesn't
Mm,
work if we're not engaged. We're an active participant of the experience, and that's what creates flow states. That's what actually creates immersion, which is why you're seeing these engagement numbers, which actually then leads to higher brand recall, elevated levels of brand awareness, more brand loyalty, higher conversions, not just in the gaming environment, in the digital environment, but also to the physical item compared to any other channel. So, and I think games in that sense, to your question, it's not just a destination where people go to play. They do a lot more in those environments. They hang out with their friends. They want to interact. They want to meet new people. They want to socialize. They want to play. They want to do all these things. And I think as a brand, you have to be ready for, and this is actually a huge opportunity, you can become playable and you can let people experience you as a brand with all of your facets. So I think if you
mhm.
go into these environments, you gotta go all in. You have to take it for everything that it is and that it has to offer, because it's a massive opportunity. Even if you, quote unquote, "just integrate with an existing game," but, think about you're building your own game, whether it's a mobile game or you're building your own Roblox game on Roblox, or you're getting your own island within Fortnite. Yes, you have the art style, that's defining that overall game. However, that approach has one fundamental advantage for any brand compared to social media. You get to shape the experience from the ground up. You get to design it. You get to shape it to what you want it to be and what you want it to represent about who you are as a company. The Instagram feed is the Instagram feed. Meta doesn't do anything to you. It's like that's the feed you're working with. That's the real estate we're giving you, and that is it. And I think that's where some of the biggest opportunities lie in. You get to have a direct, dynamic relationship that's a lot more engaging because of the state of play, and you get to shape the entire environment and the experience around it, which there's no other medium that lets you do that.
I wonder, it sounds like we're gonna see more and more brands sort of crack that code, but I do think the majority of the brands right now are looking at it from, like, a brand marketing standpoint. But I think my last question for you as we're, heading up to time here, the book is called "Why Every Company
Mhm.
Needs a Gaming Strategy," and
Mhm.
as of right now, most companies don't have a gaming strategy.
Yeah.
Do you think we're gonna reach a point where every company actually does? And if so, realistically, when do you see that happening?
I mean,
Look
time
into your
frame.
crystal ball, Bastian.
Yeah, I wish I had that crystal ball. I think it's gonna take years to get to that point. If we ever get to, actually the point where every company has a strategy for this. Why every company needs a strategy? Because every company engages and deals with human beings.
Mhm.
So I always one of the most striking examples, I gave a talk at the Gamescom Congress last year on this, and afterwards, two partners from one of the I can't say the name, but one of the biggest law firms in the world came up to me and said, "We were just curious. We thought this wasn't going to be relevant for us as a law firm, but now we're like, we should be doing compliance internally, training with games and this and that." I'm like, "You're absolutely right, because you have a workforce of over 20,000 people and you're asking people to fill in hundreds of questions to do like really mundane basic stuff." So, when I say every company, yeah, you might be in the direct to consumer business where it's very obvious that you're Adidas, you're selling sneakers to a consumer, to a person. That's very obvious. But if you're that law firm, well, you have clients, you're dealing with other companies, but they're run by human beings. So there's ways for you to leverage gaming principles. Maybe you're not integrating on Roblox, but maybe there's training materials, there's educational stuff that you're doing around. And then we actually did this at BCG back in the day, where you develop a game for that. And then you have employees internally training, reskilling, upskilling, compliance, all this stuff. So I would encourage everyone to look at where are the opportunities for us as an organization when we think about our touch points as a business, as a company with human beings, and that could be externally, obviously, with consumers, but that's just as well internally with employees.
Well said,
Thank
Bastian.
you.
Thank you for your insights. Thank you for writing this book. The book, again, is called Press Play: Why Every Company Needs a Gaming Strategy. We encourage our listeners to check it out. It's definitely worth your time.
Right. Mm.
But again, thanks for coming on the show,
Thank you
and
so
we're
much for
excited
being
to
with
see
us.
what you continue to produce.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a absolute pleasure, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And let's go back to the show.
It was such a pleasure to talk to Bastian. Honestly, I think we could have carried on talking to him, but for me, the key highlights that he mentioned was gaming is cross-generational. So while there is an opportunity for you to reach Gen A, Gen Z, you can also reach, your boomers. And actually,
Great
as
point.
as you mentioned, this is a generation that's actually more and more on those mobile games. So gaming is a cross-generational platform for you to engage with, but as you mentioned, you need to adapt your strategy based on the platform that you are going into. And I really loved his approach to, I guess, what is a long-term strategy as opposed to like shorter-term campaigns if you want to get the return on investment essentially that you're expecting from these new platforms.
Yeah, great point. And also, I just want to double down on how valuable this book is
Yeah.
for people in the marketing world who are, they might be thinking, like, should I get into gaming? Does it make sense for my brand? Like, this book is perfect for them to read because coming out of that read, you get a good sort of primer on the interactive gaming marketing space. Historically, what are some of the biggest campaigns that have seen the most success from all different verticals? It does a really great job of kind of just setting people's knowledge base up to then try something. So I would just really encourage people to check it out.
Yeah,
And
a
I
great.
love his enthusiasm. He's just so bullish on the space like we are. And it definitely, the book toward the end, it's really focused on making that point clear that, brands coming inside of gaming, this is not an if, it's just a win.
Okay, but after that, shall we go to your hit, miss, and bits?
Let's go. All right, so for my hit, you stole this
Oh,
from
sorry.
me in the story. My hit is the how Gap opened up their content studio revolution.
I didn't
Um,
go into detail, so I think you can like open up a little bit
sure.
more about
So
it.
I don't have a ton of details on it, but I do think that I'm inspired by it. They're opening a physical location in Hollywood, and they have designed, like you mentioned earlier, that new role, the chief entertainment officer.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, they got the former Paramount exec to run that. And now basically that role is at the C-suite level. So
Yes.
when brands think, or when Gap thinks about how it's going to reach consumers from a marketing standpoint, the entertainment marketing is at the top leadership level. So we've already seen Gap do really interesting, innovative, sort of branded content with anime, and all kinds of other sort of cross promotional stuff. I'm just really excited to see what entertainment, fashiontainment, as they're
Yes, yes.
calling it, that's gonna roll out this year. So that's my win. That's my hit. props to Gap. I'm excited to see what's coming.
Absolutely.
My miss, I don't know if we talked about this on the show, but I saw it pop up again. But Nike quietly sold its fashion and NFT company Artifact
Hmm.
last month.
Yeah.
And to me, the miss was, going so all in on NFTs,
Yeah.
because obviously this shows that it didn't work. Maybe they had their moment of success and now they're kind of like just backing away.
Yeah.
Um, but also I think it's a miss with Nike how they aren't fully sold on gaming yet. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like they tried Roblox
Yeah.
and they're not doing it anymore. They tried Fortnite and they're not doing it anymore. And, I just, for such a cool brand, they just haven't figured out how to consistently show up in gaming in a
Hmm.
way that's offering value. And I
Yeah.
think that like there's so many gamers that are Nike fans. So
Oh, absolutely.
why? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they continue to test the waters. My bet, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's actually going to happen this year. I think there's this massive sort of trend with UGC gaming, and the AAA industry sees this, and they're going to start to roll UGC components out to a lot of the AAA titles that are coming.
Mhm.
I think it's just within this year, um, a major UGC gaming company will acquire a UGC gaming company studio. So you can imagine like maybe Activision buys Voldex, the Roblox
Hmm.
gaming studio,
Yeah, it could be.
and folds it in because they're not used to the UGC gaming culture and the audience. They
Yeah.
make titles, they make different type of games, mobile games, AAA console. It's very different from this new weird UGC world. So it's a lot easier to acquire one of these really talented gaming studios that have tons of hits within these UGC gaming platforms and just fold it in and then figuring out how to take their IP or their sort of brand and get that into the platforms like Roblox and Fortnite. So I just think an acquisition's coming and it will be very interesting and
I
exciting
agree.
to see, these companies, these UGC gaming studios that we talk about, maybe one will fall under a massive AAA title.
I wouldn't be surprised because I think you're spot on where it is another can of worms. And I think if they want to be part of that conversation, and especially as we know, the creating a AAA game is still incredibly expensive and lengthy, even with
Yeah.
AI development, etc. So I think they probably are all looking at how do we continue to, I guess, engage our fans with those shorter term like games, I guess, and lower lift games. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's a safe bet, Nick.
Let's
But
see it come true.
let's see if it comes through. And that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Make sure to like and follow so we can keep bringing you the latest on immersive marketing. Edward, read us out.
And that was Brands in Play. Thank you for joining the podcast where we explore immersive marketing and the people who are leading it. Co-hosted by Albane, Prioux and Nick Hill. Our show today was produced by myself, Regal, with creative direction by Joey Jerder and audio engineering by Summer Kiyu.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of host employers. The information shared during this podcast is based on personal experience and publicly available information and is intended for informational purposes only. Any references to specific platforms, companies, or partnerships are made in a personal capacity and do not imply endorsement, partnership, or official association with any organization mentioned.